Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. U.S. women's soccer star, has been now, Megan Rapinoe ends her long career by giving one final FU to the United States of America and its national anthem. And one of the most popular children's cartoons, I guarantee you've let your kids watch this, in the country introduces its first non-binary character because it's never too early to indoctrinate the children with the rabid gender ideology, the cult. Get them in the cult nice and early. Just keep reinforcing it over and over. That way, by the time they get to school in any state other than Florida, it'll be super easy to switch them over as a supporter or perhaps as a joiner. Concerned parents were not supposed to notice the hidden reference in the show, but we did, and we'll talk about it. Joining me now to discuss these stories and many others, Carrie Prejean Boller, Miss California 2009, and one of the most outspoken mothers I know, leading the charge against the messaging being shoved in front of our children today. Hey, subscribe to the show on YouTube and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Negative dings on credit reports happen to all sorts of people from all socioeconomic backgrounds. Understanding the credit landscape can be very tough. And spending the time to dispute and repair these so-called dings can be a full-time job. Good luck to you if you have kids and a 9-to-5 job. For starters, you have to deal with 3 separate credit bureaus. It's a massive headache. It's also a common misconception that people with poor credit scores are just people who simply don't pay their credit card bills. These can be very hard-working middle-class people who are negatively affected by divorce or identity theft, medical debt, student loans. I was there. I was one of those people. But if you do not address negative credit items, they can haunt you for years to come. And when it counts the most, like getting a mortgage at a competitive rate. And we know that being relegated to the status of renter versus homeowner can be a huge obstacle for people trying to move their family up in economic class over the course of their lifetime. That's called the American dream. Everyone should have it. The good news is our new sponsor, Lexington Law, can help. Go to lexingtonlaw.com. and start today with a free consultation and review. Tell them Megyn sent you at lexingtonlaw.com. Carrie, so good to see you. There's a lot going on just in California. So on many levels, you're the perfect guest for today. I have to kick it off with this. Okay, I live in Connecticut. And one of the blessings of moving from New York City to Connecticut is, while Connecticut is a blue state, it is not disgusting. It is not immoral. It is not full of debauchery around every corner like San Francisco, California. I realize you don't live in San Fran, thank God. But in San Francisco, California right now, as the New York Times, by the way, does this long piece today trying to rehabilitate San Fran, is like, why, people are being too hard on it. It's really come back. It's doing just fine. We get the Folsom Street Fair. And your favorite lawmaker, can I tell the audience, Carrie has been on to State Senator Scott Wiener for years. And when I first met Carrie, I got to re-know you because we met years ago. I was like, why is she so fired up about this guy? What's he doing? I don't know. He's a normal lib. No, he's not. He's not normal. And he is tweeting about this Folsom Street Fair just over the past couple of days, saying, today is the Folsom Street Fair, one of the best days of the year in San Francisco. He attended the Folsom Leather Brunch. He's so grateful to all the kick-ass community leaders who make our city a better place. Well, Carrie, you take 2 minutes to look into the Folsom Street Fair that Scott Wiener, your favorite, is celebrating. And forgive me to the audience at home because I'm going to have to get graphic here. It didn't take us long to find this picture of grown men peeing and, we believe, defecating on other people in a public kiddie pool that is on display. Another image shows men's penises, people having sex. It appears to be both anal and oral. Here's somebody who has the words scat pig on his back. Scat, of course, is a term for crap, bear crap. And pig, in the Urban Dictionary, we are told anything referencing pig play means raunchy gay sex. If one refers to them as a pig, they usually have few limits in terms of sex. So this person's had that written on his back in what appears to be human excrement, parading around. One person was dressed as a priest with a paddle. Another woman with her breast removed, showing off her top surgery scars. And then, as I said, people openly having sex. We didn't make graphics of it because it was too X-rated. This is happening right this week, currently, on the streets of San Francisco, and your state senator, who's trying to trans half the kids in your state, maybe all of them, is celebrating it openly and unabashedly. Scott Wiener, who we can thank for half of the radical legislation that's either on the docket or being pushed through right now in California. What do you make of it all?
Oh, my blood is boiling, Megyn. I have been speaking out against Senator Wiener for a very long time now. I actually had the privilege of running into him at my local country club here, and that was fun.
Well, we have that. I'm sorry to interrupt you just as soon as you get going, but we pulled that because we know you were onto this guy a long time ago. Well, let me show it to the audience so they know what you're about to discuss.
Are you Senator Scott Wiener? Are you or no? No, are you look like? You are? Okay. You are a force to be reckoned with in California. You have had such an impact on the state. Like your bill, even the most recent with 107, making it safe right now. And we're doing an investigation right now on the origins with the Kinsey Institute. Like, have you dove into that?
The Kinsey Institute in Indiana. You're not familiar with it? Like the whole trans movement and all that, based on pedophilia and child abuse. Are you not familiar with it? You need to understand what you're supporting.
The reason why is because so many of your bills that you propose are based out of the theories that were popularized by Alfred Kinsey. Do you have a statement? Or do you just ignore constituents?
So that was you and Britt getting right up in this guy's grill. And there, I know it's controversial to confront our public servants. I use that term generously with him in private spaces. But this guy is actively, I think, trying to cause the abuse of young children. He deserves it. I'm sorry, but this guy might be singularly evil in the way he is approaching our children. Go ahead.
Yeah, he is solely responsible for most of the bills that are being passed here in California. And this guy doesn't even have children, obviously. He is a pervert, first of all. And I think that they need to be looking into his hard drives on his computers at his home, because this guy is, I mean, you showed the pictures. This guy is sick. This guy is perverted. And this guy has no place making bills that are affecting families and children across this state of California. He is disgusting. And I'm so glad that people are becoming more aware of what he's doing and who he really is. He is disgusting, filth, and he's a groomer.
The reaction online has been pretty swift, saying, my God, the fact that a sitting state senator would admit he attended this and celebrate, being at this event where the people are defecating on each other, openly having anal sex. Are you kidding me? Like, how? It's just like last week we were critical of Senator John Fetterman for the outfit he wore to the U.S. Senate, for them relaxing the dress code at the U.S. Senate. I realize this is state, but it's still a legislative body that is responsible for the laws that come out for one of the largest states in the union. Is it the largest?
Yeah.
Second, maybe second. Yeah. Okay. So this guy who actively every day seems to sit down and say, what can I do to deprive any parent of the right to take care of his or her own child? I want control over Carrie Prejean Boller's children, over all the Californians' children. That guy showing up at the event where they're smearing shit all over one another, peeing on one another in front of everyone. And you guys are supposed to trust him.
Yeah. No, we don't trust him. And that's why when Britt and I went up to him at that restaurant, I mean, what an arrogant pig he is. And then he had the audacity, Megyn, to go up to the hostess and say, these women are harassing me. He is a coward. He wouldn't answer any of our questions. He knows that he is absolute filth and that he's despised by most people in this state, including Democrats. I don't know anybody that approves of any bills that he is sponsoring. And he is pushing this cult on our children. And I'm so thankful that people are onto him. And we need to vote his ass out of office. I'm sorry.
He is too radical, even for Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
He is the man behind the legislation, which it's not a miracle, it's presidential politics. But I was going to say by some miracle. But I think because of presidential politics, Gavin Newsom declined to sign. And whatever you think of Gavin Newsom, and I think we both know he's very aligned with the radical gender ideology, thank God he did not sign it. Thank God he didn't sign it. But Britt, this guy Weiner, he loved this legislation, and he's still openly expressing his lament that Gavin Newsom didn't sign it, and it could still go through because the Democrats have supermajorities in the House and the state Senate out there, and they could still override the veto. And you know what I'm talking about, how they wanted to make it very easy for courts to say, if you don't affirm your child's gender confusion, you could lose custody.
Yeah, think about that. It's literally a kidnapping bill that pervert Senator Scott Weiner is basically saying, you parents have no rights. That if your child goes to school and says, oh, my parents aren't affirming me and I want to, move out and I'm 12 years old. Guess what Scott Weiner is proposing? That the school take those kids and put them in a facility and the parents have absolutely no rights. This is ludicrous. This is insanity. This is absolutely insane. And parents better wake up.
I should note for the record, we have no evidence of anything on his computer at home. I think you're saying he's perverted because of the legislation he is pushing through that would deprive parents of their rights and allow the state to decide whether a child's momentary gender confusion means he no longer has access to his mother.
Yeah, I want to know why Scott Weiner is obsessed with our children. That's what I mean by let's look at his hard drive. Okay. Why is he obsessed with pushing this cult ideology on our kids? You look at the disgusting filth on his Instagram, the things that he posts. It is so beyond insane, Megyn, that he needs to be investigated. I'm sorry, because he is obsessed with our kids. He's obsessed with pushing parents out of the conversation, and he wants us parents to have absolutely no rights.
There's a woman who goes by Ask a Trans Widow. I think I know what that means. Her name is Tracy, who posted the reaction to his tweet saying that this is one of the best days of the year in San Francisco, this fair. And she states as follows: Folsom Fair is known for exhibiting the most disgusting and depraved acts publicly. The fact that a state senator thinks it's perfectly acceptable to announce he was at a leather brunch highlights a problem with the greater culture. We keep being told we're bigots, while the bar keeps moving from tolerance all the way to men acting out their homosexual kinks in public. It's gross, and all of California should be ashamed because San Francisco has no shame of its own anymore. Now, he has not responded to any of this, but here's another person's post. Public sex, piss, shit, and abuse. This is degradation. Nothing to celebrate. The demoralization of our culture is a cancer on our ability to form nourishing relationships and community. That's exactly it. It's just, not so long ago, and I realize San Francisco, but I mean, it's not that different from Chelsea, New York, in New York City, the Chelsea neighborhood. It's very, very gay neighborhood. I lived there for a couple of years when I first got to New York. The Halloween parade was a lot, but nothing like this. Nothing like this, where bodily functions on one another, like open, masturbation and sex and so, and like, I never witnessed anything. Forgive me, but it was like the fun gays, they were celebratory, and it was like about embracing whatever, a sexuality that had been demonized. It wasn't about forcing deviancy on the public streets in a way that they required you celebrate. And this first woman has a good point about how now it's really getting to the point where if you have a problem with this, it's your bigotry. It's your intolerance.
Yeah. And I want to know, what is the plus on the LGBTQIA plus? Is it now anything goes? Where do we draw the line, Megyn? Now what's next? Men able to just go around naked in the streets in front of small children? Let them express themselves, right? That was the whole thing in 2009. Whatever you want to do in the privacy of your bedroom. Well, guess what, Megyn? The bedroom is now in the classroom, is now in the boardroom, is now passing laws that affect my children. It's not okay. You give them an inch, they take a freaking mile. When is it going to end, and where do you draw the line?
The appearance of deviance everywhere is hard to miss. I mean, we've seen this sort of debauchery in corner after corner, mostly in the very, very blue cities, in the very, very blue states. But I would argue that what we're seeing, for example, in the women's prisons is also deviancy. I mean, there is a case that I've been dying to talk to you about. It's out of Wisconsin, all right? And we've talked before about how they're putting men in women's prisons now. And all you need to do is say that you're actually a woman, you're actually not a man. And several states in the union will say, okay, off you go. You're in the women's prison, including your state, California. But people need to keep this in mind as they watch Gavin Newsom debate Ron DeSantis with Sean Hannity. Keep that in mind. You could not find two governors who are more diametrically opposed on this issue, but Gavin Newsom's just fine with putting men in with the women in the prisons. So let's go to Wisconsin, where they are now, this is according to the Daily Signal's reporting, housing a man whose name is Mark Campbell, who raped his own 10-year-old daughter repeatedly in front of that little girl's little brother. This is him, Mark, trying to look like a woman unconvincingly. He is in the Taycheedah Correctional Institution in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. He is now a registered sex offender, convicted of first-degree sexual assault of a child. He is 52 years old. He's 5'9". He's 225 pounds. And now he says he's female. A couple of years ago, as of 2013, he said, I'm transgender and I want surgery. He wanted the taxpayers to pay for it. The Department of Corrections said no. He filed a lawsuit in 2016 for not allowing his sex change operation on the taxpayer dime. In December 2020, this federal judge, James D. Peterson, a Barack Obama appointee, issued an opinion saying that Wisconsin must offer him taxpayer-funded surgery to change, I guess, his penis into a vagina, some fake vagina hole, and move him into the women's prison even before the surgery took place. So immediately into the women's prison. So now you've got this convicted rapist of little girls housed with the women in the Wisconsin Department of Corrections inside the prison I just mentioned. And we're supposed to say, let's be tolerant. Let's understand how difficult it must be for somebody like Mark to be in the male prison. And let me just add one other thing to this, Britt. I'm trying to get the, okay, here's what the guy said, the judge. Stand by, because I did it as a screen grab. I was so fired up when I started reading about it. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. All right. He says, some members of the public are outraged at any effort to improve the health and well-being of inmates. He's obviously not talking about the female inmates. But the true public interest lies in alleviating needless suffering by those who are dependent on the government for their care. I decline to impose any further prerequisites on Campbell's sex reassignment surgery, Peterson added, using female pronouns for the inmate. She has waited long enough. So this judge, Barack Obama's, we have him to thank, his judge, is very, very concerned about the health and well-being of the inmates, Carrie.
Yeah, it's a very sad day, Megyn, in America right now, because we have lost all, not only common sense, but just human decency. I mean, think about what you just said. We are allowing a child rapist to now claim he's a woman because we've lost, oh, well, a man can just miraculously become a woman. No, absolutely not. It's not a she, he's a he. And we need to stop playing the pronoun patty cake game, because once you do that, you lose immediately. And think about it. So now we're allowing him in the women's prison because he claims he's a woman. What do you think is going to happen? It is. It is.
Where
evil.
do these women go? Right? What happens when these women wind up in front of Judge Patterson? Does he have the same empathy for them? Does he do anything to protect them from this convicted rapist? And by the way, the same Daily Signal report points out that more than half of the trans-identifying prisoners in the Wisconsin criminal system are convicted sex offenders. These guys rape women, and in this case, little girls. And then as soon as they get sentenced to prison, they have an epiphany that, what? I am a woman. And they roll out the red carpet for them. And then this judge wants us to look at him and say, he's the empathetic one, and we're the terrible, mean-spirited dark hearts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, think about it. It's a pretty good gig for him. Think of all the men who are the rapists and the murderers. And, all they have to say is, I feel like a woman today. And now I can go bunker up with the ladies. I mean, what the hell is going on in America right now? And shame on that judge. And you know what? Shame on the feminists. Because where are all the Me Too women, Megyn? Where are all the feminists that have created this mess? They made us so equal that now there are no longer differences between men and women. I blame the feminists for this. And where are the Me Too women who, believe all women and I'm a victim? Where are they? Completely silent. Shame on them. Shame on that judge.
The problem begins with their acceptance of the premise that trans women are women. They say that's true, and that's ball game. Once you accept, and they're not wrong. Once you accept that lie, it is ball game. Right? That's why we have to stand up to that lie.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right, which is why we cannot call these men who are masquerading as women, women. I saw the other day, Fox News posted a thing about the Panthers cheerleader, the dude that is wearing woman face and is a cheerleader. And Fox News posted it and said, she is this and she is that. And I said, stop calling him a she. Stop it, Fox. Why are you surrendering language? We need to take back our language and stand up for the truth. Men cannot be women. Women cannot be men. It's basic science. And we need to stop pandering to the left ideology cult that is pushing this garbage, not only on our kids, but on our society. And it's affecting women everywhere.
And we're going to get into some of those examples as we go forward. But let me ask you, because I know that you're a big fan of President Trump. And of course, we've been very supportive of many of the things that Trump has done too. But he stumbled, I think, a little in his interview with me on this answer. And it's led to some blowback, in particular from DeSantis and his supporters, because you and I both know DeSantis has been very clear. A man cannot become a woman. That's not a thing. And is, I think exactly as we'd want our next president to be when it comes to this issue. Doesn't mean he's a better candidate than Trump overall, but on this issue, he's very solid. Trump, I was surprised that he didn't come right. I was a little surprised he didn't come right out and say, he did say what we wanted him to say on, I'm against now men coming into women's spaces, prisons. I asked him, prisons, bathrooms, locker rooms, and he said no. And he pointed out how he was aggressive in keeping them out of the military, where they wanted trans people openly serving. Anyway, then I asked him this infamous question. I'm going to play my question to him, and then I'm going to play you Riley Gaines's reaction, because I've been dying to ask you about this. Can a man become a woman?
In my opinion, you have a man, you have a woman. I think part of it is birth. Can the man give birth? No. Although they'll come up with some answer to that also someday. I heard just the other day they have a way that now the man can give birth. No, I would say I'll continue my stance on that.
Okay, so now DeSantis already has an ad out comparing his answer to Glenn Beck on that exact question after I had my interview with Trump and and Trump's answer to me. And then here's Riley Gaines, of course, an activist now trying to fight back against the same stuff you and I are fighting on, who's, by the way, just getting like so effective. And she's been very good. My God, I really, and she's young, you know, she kind of like, she's the right age to speak to this generation that's being so indoctrinated. Anyway, here she is reacting.
Did you see this Megyn Kelly interview with Donald Trump talking about whether a man can become a woman? What are your thoughts?
I was shocked. I never would have imagined that President Trump would have struggled to answer this. And it was very clear he was struggling. He hesitated, you know, well, he says, you know, I think, it's not an I think. This is not an opinion. It's a fact that no, a male can never become a female, a man can never become a woman, a boy can never become a girl, a father can never become a mother. It's an easy, emphatic no.
What do you make of it, Carrie?
Yeah, you know, I watched that interview, Megyn, and I was actually shocked. I feel like he was surprised that you actually asked that question. I was thankful you asked it because I think it's important. But if you really listen to what he said, at first he kind of was taken aback, and he said, you know, there's men and there's women. And I think that was his way of saying no. And then he comes out later and says, no, I'm going to stick to, you know, basically saying no without saying it. Do I wish he would have come out swinging saying, no, a man cannot be a woman? But I think he was so like shocked by that question. And it's such a ridiculous and like absurd question. Like obviously, no. Right. It's so insane that we even have to be criticizing someone for not answering it in that way, because it's so obvious. Now, I look at what Trump does. So he said his number one thing is to stop this gender ideology cult being pushed on our kids. He's going to end the child gender mutilation. I look at the things that he's doing. And so, you know, I gave him a pass on that. Do I wish he would have said, yeah, a man cannot be a woman? Yes. But I look at the good things that he's done, and he has a pretty good track record. And
can I tell you something? Trump used that term mutilation, and I understand that term, because how can you consent under the age of 18 to having body parts chopped off for, you know, these purposes? Like what would appear to be, you know, in some cases political or ideological cult-like ideations by parents who are pushing this stuff. You cannot tell me that all of these children who are having top surgery or, God forbid, bottom surgery are completely informed consent, never mind the ones who are doing puberty blockers into cross-sex hormones. They have no idea that they're mutilating their chances of ever having a child, that they're changing their insides in a way that will make them infertile. That's from the top trans advocates in this surgery and medicinal field. That's what they say. So Trump used that term in our interview. This is the former president of the United States, the leading candidate to become the Republican candidate of the United States. And guess what? YouTube demonetized it because of that term. We're, to your point about controlling the language, Carrie, we're not allowed to use the M word, says YouTube, and remain monetized. You can stay on YouTube, but you can't. But like that, we've never been demonetized before, ever. Now, our channel has never been demonetized for any single video we've ever done. Now, the past president, the guy who's, according to the ABC News poll yesterday, the most likely to be the next president, uses that word, and YouTube tries to censor it. YouTube tries to say, nope, it's a punishment. I got enough money. I can withstand YouTube's censorship of my presidential interview.
That's
However,
insane.
It's bullshit.
Yeah, this is the power, Megyn, that they have. This is when we say the cult, it is so powerful what they can do. I mean, think about that. This is the former president and the leading Republican candidate for president for 2024. And he's not allowed to say exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. But they want to control the language. They want to censor you because they don't want you saying those words, Megyn. They want you scared to say those words, the M word. Mm-hmm. And they're going to threaten you. Hey, we're going to cancel you. We're going to make it so that you can't monetize off of the things that are being said on your show. Whatever happened to free speech?
We saw that study that came out belatedly. I think it was out of Amsterdam with the 16-year-old boy who wanted to become a girl, who went through a surgery where they were trying to create a vagina out of his penis. And I think this boy had been put on the puberty blockers into the cross-sex hormones, so his penis never developed. And so there wasn't enough skin. And so they took skin from and tissue from his intestines. Forgive me, audience, I know this is graphic, but there's a reason for the graphic discussion. I mean, what good does it do us to sweep this under the rug and pretend this isn't happening to children? They took, and this is not an isolated case, this is what they do. They take tissue from one's other organs. I think it was lower intestines in this case. And he died. He died. And this is not the death. I haven't heard about another death happening on the table like this, but this procedure is, of course, full of risks. If you watch Jazz Jennings, all Jazz talks about is the negative consequences of trying to have surgery from male to female and the expander that, I mean, I don't understand why mutilation is not an okay term. I really don't. What do you call it when a parent consents to a minor having the kind of procedures that do that to their intestines, that risk their lives, that risk their well-being for the rest of their lives? And that same parent, who's looking at a child who can't legally get a tattoo, who can't legally have a cocktail, who can't even, in some of these instances, like Chloe Cole, even legally drive, Carrie. It's so dark. And the answer is not to shut down conversation around it.
No, absolutely not. But think about it. They don't want the words mutilation being thrown around because that's what it is. They don't want people to actually believe that it's mutilating their body. But what else is it? If it's not mutilation, what is it? What is the word that they want to use? I don't know what other word they want to come up with at this point.
Yeah.
But that's why these detransitioner voices, like you said, Chloe Cole, they are so important to be shedding light on the reality of what this does to these young people who do mutilate their bodies at a young age. And so back to your question about Trump, I appreciate what he's saying. That's his number one thing. Think about that. That's his number one thing, Megyn. That's pretty powerful.
I don't know if that is his number one thing, though. Do you think? I mean, I think to Trump's credit, it's my number one thing. It's probably your number one thing. But I think Trump is more focused on the economy. And my own theory on why he answered the question that way is he hasn't really been thinking about it that much. He's been thinking about the disastrous inflation and the immigration crisis. And I get it. Those are huge and they're massive. And, a lot of people, that's their main focus. Right. You and I are in a different place as we're young moms and so on. I do think Trump will legislate the way we want him to if he's returned to the White House on this.
And remember, he's old school, Megyn. I mean, think about his age. This wasn't going on when he was our age. I mean, this is insane that he actually is being asked on a huge interview with Megyn Kelly, can a man be a woman? I mean, that's where we're at in society.
You're right. You're right.
Think about that. And then people are criticizing him. Oh, I can't believe it's so obvious.
And you know what? He'll get another chance. Some other interviewer will come after me and will ask it again in a different form, and I'll have a do-over at it. And we'll see then, whether he's massaged the messaging. But you're right. I mean, I love the question, and I know you like the question too, but it is an absurd question. It's an absurd question, and it's absurd that I have to ask it. We all know the answer. All right, stand by. We're going to do a little beauty queen discussion next, and how I am apparently giving Carrie a run for her money in this field. I will show you the surprise reason I say that next. Okay, so a tree branch hit a power line in Ohio in 2003, and it shut down 21 power plants. Around 100 people died. We have a power grid that was designed in the 1800s. Even the White House sees it. They're saying 2/3 of the grid are at least 25 years old. So they recently announced billions of dollars to update it, but how long will that take to actually get done? That is why having your own solar power may be more important than ever. With the Patriot Power Generator, you get a solar generator that does not install into your house because it's portable. But it is powerful enough for your phones, your medical devices, even your fridge. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and use the code MK to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including the Patriot Power Generator. You will also get their famous guarantee for an entire year, after your order, plus free shipping on orders over $97. And a portion of every sale is donated to charities that support our veterans and their families. Just go to 4 patriots.com and use the code MK to get 10% off your order. 4patriots.com. Use that code MK to get yours today. Carrie, I too am apparently in beauty queen contests, and they don't get as much coverage as they ought to. But I made news apparently because the recent winner of the, Miss Universe, it feeds into Miss Universe, Miss Zimbabwe, is said online by some to be a Megyn Kelly lookalike. And I am here to tell you, I only wish my legs looked like this woman's legs. They're about 25 miles high. But the reason this has made news is not because some people feel she looks like me, and we'll show you the little side-by-side in a minute. It's because she's controversial because she's white. And now some people, look, there we are, side by side. I think she looks more like Katherine Heigl, who some people say I have a resemblance to. But in any event, there we are. They're mad that a white colonialist won the Miss Zimbabwe pageant, even though whites are apparently only 2% of the population out there. And they're pissed off that Zimbabweans aren't racist enough to reject the white girl.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So last night I was prepping for your show and I was showing my kids, I said, look at Miss Zimbabwe. And they go, that looks like Megyn Kelly. I'm like, yeah, it literally looks exactly like you. No, I find this is so sad, Megyn, because she's a native from Zimbabwe. Like, why are we making this a big deal? Why can't we just let the girl win? Thank God she is a real woman, right? I mean, that's where our standard.
Let's just be thankful for that.
But just the comments online, like I was going through it last night and I just thought, wow, people are so hateful. They're so cruel, and I loved her response of saying like, the color of our skin should not define a person. We're all beautifully kind, made by God. And I'm like, good for her, to obviously the judges picked her. Like, why are we not criticizing the judges? Why are we criticizing this girl? She's just like, hey, I'm the winner. Don't blame me.
Right.
So
like, get over it.
Yeah. Get over it. I mean,
yeah. Yes, I know. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. And I'm thrilled that, now there's somebody who is going to represent the Kelly name at the Miss Universe pageant. They're going to be like, what's that? Why would they elect a 52-year-old woman from New York as Miss Zimbabwe? But no, I think she's 20. I said to Debbie, Canadian Debbie, I'm like, don't we have like something from the interview portion where we could hear how she sounds? She's like, MK, it's Miss Zimbabwe. We do not have the interview portion online.
I know, but I feel like, yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, like, I watched it and I thought it was so sad because even the girl that put the sash around her and put the crown on her, she kind of looked bummed out. It was really sad that people weren't really celebrating her win. Why are we looking at the color of the skin? Why aren't we looking at, obviously it's a beauty contest, right? It should be. And it should be based on, your personality and your answer and all that goes into it. But she was clearly gorgeous. Think about it. We're demonizing a pageant for picking the prettiest one, in my opinion.
Well, and then we do exactly the opposite. Okay, when the trans contestants run, which is happening, a couple of trans people won in, I don't know, the Netherlands and another place too, then that diversity is fine. When it's a man with a penis, that is to be celebrated as that's good diversity. But a white person winning in Zimbabwe, where I presume most of the panel was likely black, that's not okay. That's bad diversity.
Yeah. Make up your mind. What is it? Do we want diversity? Do we want equity? What do we want?
Yeah.
We want
so penis good, white skin bad.
Good. Yeah. Woman face good. Beautiful girl not good.
So, all right. So that brings me to the homecoming queen situation. Now, look, I'm not trying to pick on this one trans person who won homecoming queen in Missouri. All right. I'm sure this person, this person lost their father in 2020. It's a boy who's posing as a girl. And I, having lost my own dad in high school, feel for him. I'm sure he does have issues as a result of this. However, it doesn't make him a woman. And he was just voted the homecoming queen at this student in Oak Park, at this school in Oak Park. And respectfully, this is not a beautiful woman or even attempt at looking like a woman. And yet he won, and it's not the first time. And in fact, they voted for a boy to win homecoming queen a couple years ago. And that person now, we actually took a look, that person now is a drag queen who is using the moniker, what is it, Lana Lux with double X's, the Japanese Barbie of Kansas City. So, and posing all sort of not safe for work content. So this school has like a history. But the thing that, Riley Gaines, back to her again, she said something about this and I was like, it's a good way to put it. And she said, I wonder if a female will win homecoming king or if it's simply understood that both of these spots are reserved for males, and saying this is another reminder to all girls that men make the best women. That sums it up.
It really does. And it makes me so sad, Megyn. I mean, think back to high school. It was every girl's dream to win homecoming queen. I mean, if you won homecoming queen, you were like the coolest girl in the school. And I just feel so sad for our girls because you look at the 4 girls next to him and I thought, where is their courage? What kind of girls are we raising? Oh, girls that just go in the picture and smile and just say, yeah, boy just took our title of homecoming queen. Like, why are we not raising strong women that say, absolutely not am I going to accept this? And where are those parents? Shame on them. Shame on those girls. Shame on those girls. We need to be raising strong women like you and I who would say, absolutely not. He just took my title of homecoming queen. It's not acceptable. And people better wake up, Megyn, because Riley Gaines is exactly right. Men make a better woman than a real woman. And that's where we're at. And it's really sad for our daughters.
We all know men make the best women. So well put. I'm going to be using that again. That's exactly what they're trying to say. And I understand that maybe they felt bad for this guy. He had a family loss, maybe. And by the way, that's the only thing he pointed to when he said, I had a rough time in high school. So one of the publications local asked him and he was like, well, my dad died. And I get it. As I said, I get it. But it doesn't give you an entitlement to be in women's spaces, winning women's awards. There are few enough. And I realize it's like, oh, homecoming queen, who gives a shit? But you're right. And when I was in high school, I won the homecoming princess when I was the sophomore, which is not queen. I did not win.
Did you lose
queen.
To a guy?
Yeah, that was not a thing back when I was in high school. But I will say, I had been very badly bullied just a few years earlier. And to win that as a sophomore was such a boost of confidence for me. It was like, okay, my God, I've sort of made it back. I have friends. I'm not going to be targeted now. And I'm sure trans people have a difficult time too, though not apparently at this school. not this school. There's got to be some other way of helping them feel good about themselves rather than taking those opportunities away, those spots away, that moment of like, okay, you know what? This is a nice honor. And it's not just about, beauty. It's about, I'm sure, other personality factors too, but it's a woman's award. It's a young girl's award. He doesn't belong there. It's not appropriate.
Yeah. And I want to know, did they all give speeches like, oh, hear my sob story? Because we all have them. We all have the sob story. Is that what it's becoming? Is who's the most, victimized? Like, what about the other 4 girls? Why didn't they get an opportunity to share their story? Maybe they had a death in the family. Maybe something's going on in their life. And think about how they feel. They just lost out, homecoming queen, to a guy. Think of how they feel right now. And they're too afraid, Megyn. They're too afraid because they know better. If they speak out, oh, you better watch out.
And once again, you look back at the Zimbabwe thing. They look out at the field of candidates and they say, oh, they're all one thing. Why is it okay to hire this other thing, or not hire, but honor this other thing to represent all those who don't look like the winner? Not okay. But in this situation, this guy's, it's not even a woman. He's not even in the right category. And the other one, we're just talking about melanin. it's a man. It is a boy. The guy has a penis. Like that. I guarantee you he didn't have the same history as the little girls did. He came up a different way. He didn't have the same challenges they had. He had his own set of challenges. I get it. But the double standard is so obvious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And it happened here in my city in San Diego here, where it was actually a football player. It wasn't even like a trans. It wasn't even a guy masquerading as a woman. It was a football player that won homecoming queen. Can you believe that? That's where we're at. And when I left, I actually got sick to my stomach and I left the game. And I said to one of the teachers at the front gate, I said, you just allowed some dude to win homecoming queen? You know what she said? Oh, we don't call it homecoming queen anymore. We call it a homecoming royalty. I go, oh my God. Two kings? Like, what is this coming to? Yeah, that's going on. And that's what's next. They're going to eliminate homecoming queen and it's going to be two dudes. Watch it. Watch what happens.
Yeah, again, it's like, and at the beauty pageant level, yes, there are scholarships and so on that these men are taking. There's all sorts of opportunity that, can come from a beauty pageant win that are no longer, this whoever was runner up in the Netherlands is not going to get because a guy now has it. But the same, as I speak of the confidence boost you get as a young girl, I think of what it's like to be a teenager. My God. And it's not that I don't feel for the position this guy is in, but it shouldn't, making him feel better should not come at the cost or the expense of the young girls at that school. And for sure that the others felt pressured into voting for this guy. That's why that's why the girls didn't say anything. I'm sure they were like, holy shit, everybody's going to think I'm a bigot. Unless I say, yay, it's great, he won, yay, oh yeah, look, it's so beautiful and so awesome, and yay, good for him. And no matter how many conversations you and I have like this, because you got people like Megyn Rapinoe out there saying, something wrong with you if you object to this. There's something wrong with you if you object to males and women's sports too. Even though she never had to do it, right? She didn't have men on her team or men playing against her, except for that one exhibition match. And now here's Megyn Rapinoe on her last middle finger to the United States, which made her rich, which gave her a college scholarship, which gave her $7 million a year reportedly in endorsements and fees for playing soccer for us, on her swan song out the door, her last match as a member of the U.S. team. Here she is when the national anthem played. Watch.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight over land of the free and the home of the brave.
Scowling with her hands behind her back as the little girls in front of her put their hands on their heart. She doesn't sing one word. She doesn't touch her heart. She looks angry the entire time she's out there. And of course, we know she said she's never going to sing the anthem again. She said that a couple years ago because of equity, because now, as she put it to a magazine, quote, she is now awake and she needs to protest this country's abysmal civil rights record. Carrie.
This is exactly what a narcissist looks like, Megyn. She is the epitome of narcissism, in my opinion. I mean, think of all the privileges she's had. Think of all the money that she's made. Oh, she's so oppressed and she's standing up for things. No, she's not. She's an absolute national disgrace to our country. And most normal people in this country agree with that they can't stand that woman. I'm so glad that she's done playing soccer. She's ruined women's soccer. She's a national disgrace, that Megyn Rapinoe. Now she's on the cover of all these magazines. I am so disgusted with her. I'm done. I am so done with her, Megyn.
She received a Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Biden, the highest civilian honor in the land. Her relationship with Sue Bird, A lesbian relationship has been celebrated by virtually every magazine and in every media corner. And still, she can't find even the gesture of putting her hand on her heart for the country that's made her rich, famous, just for playing a sport she supposedly loved, while she sets a terrible example for our little girls. All I can say is, thank God those girls were looking forward and not looking back at Megyn Rapinoe. Let's hope it's true metaphorically, in addition to being an actual physical reality, because she is no role model. Good riddance. And I hope she rides off into the sunset to be alone with Sue Bird. I hope I never have to listen to her comment on any soccer game or anything in the future, because she doesn't deserve it. She's not grateful for the support this country has shown her. Stand by, much more to get to, including what the hell is happening with our children's programming. 2 minutes away. This show is supported by Grand Canyon University. Founded in 1949, GCU is a private Christian university that's dedicated to delivering an affordable and transformative higher education. Their vibrant campus is located in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. And according to niche.com, it's ranked a top 25 best campus in the country. As of June 2023, GCU offers 330 academic programs with over 270 online, allowing you the freedom to earn your degree on your time from wherever you are. Their programs are also designed to challenge and inspire you. At GCU, your degree, whether it's a bachelor's, master's, or doctorate, integrates the free market system and a welcoming Christian worldview. And they believe that higher education should be accessible to all. Learn more about GCU's programs, competitive tuition rates, and scholarship offers from your university counselor. They're part of the supportive graduation team who will take a personalized approach to helping you achieve your academic goals, walking alongside you every step of the way. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. For more information or to enroll, visit gcu.edu. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about as a mother with children like me is what's happening with Paw Patrol. I mean, who hasn't put their kids in front of Paw Patrol? I mean, I always thought it was one of the most wholesome, sweetest little offerings for your kids. Absolutely nothing controversial, like the sweet little dogs. You know, half the kids want to be one of these dogs for Halloween. Now they have decided it might be a good idea on their spin-off of Paw Patrol to introduce a non-binary character. We need a non-binary character who, I'll just show you the picture, because what they've done is they've just put the LGBTQ plus blah, 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 flag on the guy's, gals, whatever, on his, her, they's, I can't, feet. So they've got like the LGBTQ trans flag on their feet, and the, I don't know, pink and blue, whatever it is. I can't tell. This person's intentionally like the Chris or Pat character from Saturday Night Live. You don't know. Unclear. And this is a new spin-off show off of Paw Patrol called Rubble and Crew. So parents should know it's called Rubble and Crew. They say the non-binary identity is not directly addressed on the show yet, and they don't yet have this kid giving the pronouns. But Matt Walsh is making the point, Carrie, that this is what they do. They try to get your kids comfortable with this kind of presentation and the flag and sort of these subliminal messages, so that when it becomes more explicit in the later years of school, and by that I mean third grade, it's totally normal and fine, and they slip right into it. What do you make of it?
Yeah. I mean, when I heard this, I go, oh my gosh. I mean, little kids watch Paw Patrol, tiny kids, not like big kids, little kids. And so when I first saw this, I dug a little bit deeper and I found the writer of that. I mean, I think her name is Linz Amer, if I'm correct. She's the one that wrote in this character. And she wrote, I wanted to write a non-binary character that was aspirational, incredibly cool, someone for the pups and kids at home to look up to. This is the goal, Megyn. They want to normalize this stuff. Think about it. A little 3-year-old sees that and oh, there's the trans flag. And then they grow up with this stuff thinking it's normal. And then they go to public school and they're indoctrinated with it. They see the rainbow flag and the trans flag in the classroom, and it's just part of their normal life. This is the goal. This is what they want. And then you dig a little bit deeper and you look into what this writer is all about. And she's a they, them, whatever the hell that means. She's a they, them. So she's pushing her crap on our kids. It's so wrong. And she wrote 2 books called Rainbow Parenting and, another book, I forget the name of it, but I mean, she's pushing her agenda.
It's all for kids. It's all for, she's very focused on children. That's her sole focus.
Exactly. It's called Hooray for She, He, Thee, and They. What is thee, Megyn? I cannot keep up.
No, it's not a thing. They're trying to make it a thing. It's not a thing. I refuse. It's a no.
2 words, hard no. Hard no.
Hard no. It's hard no. If I had a nickel for every time I have stolen that from you, it would make up all the money I lost from the Trump mutilation video. Okay, now it's not just Paw Patrol. So this woman, as we started to look at this woman, Linz Amer,
Yes.
we find out she was brought on by Nickelodeon 2 years ago, 2021, to consult on yet another beloved series, Blue's Clues. This completely escaped my notice because Blue's Clues aired an episode that featured transgender beavers with mastectomy scars. Even Abby's laughing. Yes, mastectomy scars. Look, these are, I think they're little Band-Aids over their mastectomy scarred chests. This is insane. And this woman says her main goal is to expand the definition of family. She wants to change what we understand to be family, to have more Z's and Z's and, I guess non-traditional. I don't know. This is the same mission of Black Lives Matter, not for nothing.
Yeah, this is Marxism 101. They want to destroy the nuclear family. And she's not even ashamed to say it. That's the crazy part. She's publicly saying this stuff. She's publicly saying that she wants to indoctrinate your children. And for all the moms out there that are listening right now, make sure you are paying attention to what your kids are watching. Get the privacy apps and do all the things that are necessary because this is the goal, Megyn. They want to indoctrinate our kids. It's not a secret anymore. It's
unless you've seen the show, right? Or you've seen the movie, don't put your kid in front of it. Unless you've personally watched it already.
Exactly.
Don't go. By the way, not for nothing. Yesterday was my son's 14th birthday and the whole family went to see the movie in the movie theater, The Haunting of Venice. It's based on an Agatha Christie book. It stars Kenneth Branagh as Detective Hercule Poirot. I recommend it. We all really enjoyed it. Jump scares. Our youngest is 10. He handled it just fine. If you have a kid who scares easily, maybe not, but totally enjoyed it. Okay, but back to Blue's Clues. Listen to this. Canadian Debbie pulled the lyrics from the tune, the parade sing-along that was in this episode, released in May of 2021. And the parade is set to the classic tune of The Ants Go Marching, but listen to the lyrics.
Families marching 4 by 4, hurrah, hurrah. Families marching 4 by 4, hurrah, hurrah. Trans members of this family all love each other so proudly, and they all go marching in the big parade. Come join the fun. Families marching 5 by 5, hurrah, hurrah. Families marching 5 by 5, hurrah, hurrah. Some people choose their family. They love each other so proudly, and they all go marching in the big parade. Families marching 6 by 6, hurrah, hurrah. Families marching 6 by 6, hurrah, hurrah. Ace, By, and Pan grown-ups, you see, can love each other so proudly, and they all go marching in the big parade. Oh, yeah!
Is it over? Is it Ace, By, and Pan? What's an Ace? What's an Ace family? What even? That's this woman's handiwork. She's everywhere. She's behind Blue's Clues. She's behind the Paw Patrol spinoff. It's true. You can't trust anybody anymore.
Yeah. This is why, Megyn, conservatives and just normal parents in general need to play on offense consistently. We are always, as conservative, on the defense. They just add all these, letters to the LGBT mafia, rainbow mafia, and we're just like, oh, okay, yeah, let me just go along with it. No, we need to come out swinging. And as conservatives, say hard no. This is not acceptable. You won't have, that's basically a drag queen right there. We just saw a drag queen on there. They're trying to normalize this crap. They want to indoctrinate your kids. It's so speakable. It's insane.
Canadian Debbie's telling me ACE is short for asexual, which, by the way, if you are, you don't have children. Like, that's generally how it works. The sex needs to happen with a member of the opposite sex in order to create the baby. Hate to break it to you, lady, but that's how you came into the world, and that's pretty much how everybody came into the world. Sorry if you don't like it, but that's the only way humanity continues. The celebration of the double mastectomy scars. I realize these are like beavers. They look like bears to me. Whatever. Okay. But it's, of course, not just in the animal kingdom on cartoon television for children. It was just the razor company Braun. Okay. The razor company Braun, just a couple of years ago, was releasing an ad that looked like this to get men to buy its razors. This is the kind of ad we're used to. Let's see it.
Some people see shaving as something you do for 3 minutes a day. At Braun, we see it as something you do for a lifetime, and we think you should make the best of it. The Braun Shaver, with its 3 shaving positions. Designed for those who choose to make a virtue out of necessity. Braun, the world's #1 selling foil shaver.
Okay, more than a couple years ago, the 80s. My point is, this is how they used to try to appeal to men. Now, they're using a woman proudly displaying her double mastectomy scars. Look at this. Look at this advertisement for their razors now. This is what they're showing. This is a woman posing as a man, and like, she's obviously taking hormones to grow that facial hair, which now I guess she wants to pay Braun to help her shave off, Carrie.
This literally disturbs me so badly because now I had to come up with a new word, and it's called man face. And this is exactly what it is. It is man face, just like men are masquerading as women, wearing woman face. This is man face, and it's not okay. And I want those hot men like that guy in the commercial to come out swinging and say, this is not okay.
Right.
This is insane. You have a woman that is taking medication to make her beard grow out, and then she's shaving it. It makes no sense. It hurts my mind. It's so insane.
I know. And Braun's response is, well, we have lots of ads. Like she, although they would be calling her he, appears in just one of them. This is why, over at Daily Wire, our friends, Jeremy Boring, he helps run Daily Wire along with Ben. He's got Jeremy's razors. Because I can't remember whether it was this company or another one, but they went super woke. No, it was Gillette, wasn't it? With that ridiculous ad. And he created Jeremy's razors. And if you're a man, why don't you just buy Jeremy's razors? Buy Jeremy's razors all day long. You can avoid how is the razor company gone woke? For the love of God. You're right. It's like, why do we need woke razors? Why? I don't get it.
I'm like, men have their spaces. Women have their spaces. Let's stop pandering to this gender ideology cult. And it's all about ESG. I mean, we know that. Yep. Oh, okay, numbers just went up because they did this. They don't really care about this delusional woman that thinks she's a dude. It's not about that. Give me a break.
Yes. Okay, it was after Harry's razors, which I never heard of, went woke. That's when Jeremy's razors was launched, but it's still alive and well, and Jeremy's pushing it at every turn. So I'm going to buy Doug a stocking full for Christmas. And you should too if you want to support non-woke razors, which is a thing now. We're going to have the whole lane in Walgreens, the woke and the non-woke, and we will be on the latter. Now, wait, the other thing I want to talk to you before we went was in Canada, which is far more progressive than even the United States. Everything they're around the bend, the left wing bend. But even those parents, in a sign of, green shoot hope, have found their nerve. And they went out on what they were dubbing a million march, the 1 million march for children. Look at this. These are Canadians. I'm sorry. I love Canadians. But I'm just saying, they don't, they usually kind of roll over and take it. They're so nice. they got out there. They're done rolling over and taking it, Carrie. This is all about what's being done to the children in schools. They're angry about the radical gender ideology and the radical sexual agenda and the erosion of parental authority inside schools. And of course, in response, you had the Ottawa mayor call them hateful, said this was harassment and bigotry. You know, Justin, I've worn blackface so many times I can't even count them. Trudeau comes out to say the same, that this is hateful, saying transphobia, homophobia, and biphobia. I mean, what? That's like, what? That is encompassed in the homophobia. Stop using all the words. It's a sign of wokeism. They shove as many words as they can into it. Well, there's no place for it in this country. So we strongly condemn this hate and these manifestations of it. And we stand united with the, he can't even say it, 2L, spirit, blah, 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 blah. And here's some angry parents not feeling the Trudeau message.
We're here to support our kids, our future, to secure a future for our kids, and to say enough is enough.
And what would you say to those who characterize this as a protest of hate? It's not about your kids, it's about harming other kids.
I don't see it as hate, and I'm kind of confused as to how, when 1.8% of the population want the other 98 point something percent to do what they want to do.
Saying it's a hate because of LGBTQ. I have nothing against the community. They can do what they want in the privacy of their own homes or wherever.
And so I am here to tell everyone here that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And we are all becoming close friends, and we are all going to be able to work together instead of isolated and alone. We've all been in silos, working alone. The Muslims, the Christians, the English, the French, the rich, the poor, all separated, the natives, the settlers, and we are overcoming these. Those divisions were created on lies.
Look at that. These are, I assume, progressives, like the whole country's progressives, except for Canadian Debbie and Kelly McGuire. But how about that?
That I am so hopeful. I am so excited to be living in the time we're living now, Megyn, because you know what? The pendulum has swung so far. They are such idiots for what they've done that people are waking up. And this is the perfect example. And you know what? This is the time in America to be alive right now, to fight back against this, to take our families back, to take our kids back, and to unify as one family, one United States of America, and to say, no, you will not indoctrinate our children. We're going to stand up and we won't be gaslit any longer. We're not hateful. We're loving. We love our kids. Don't gaslight us. I'm sick of this, but I'm proud. Right. I'm so proud of those parents.
Me too. I'm so excited. I was looking for Canadian Debbie in there. I'm sure she's probably in the back. She works her issues out through this show. Carrie, it's wonderful to see you. I had so many stories. I'm like, save it for Carrie. Save it, save it, save it. It's great to hear your voice of reason.
Thank you, Megyn.
All right, we'll talk again soon. When we come back, Jason Rantz, author of What's Killing America, is here. I'm looking forward to talking to him. He's got a great outlook on what's happening with our major cities. We can do it all. We're not doing it all. Our cities are a hot mess, and he's got his finger on the pulse of several of them. So we'll get into it. Now, more on the physical and cultural decay of our nation. We kicked off the show by talking about what's happening in San Francisco. Is that the sign of a healthy society? I think we could classify that as cultural decay. Here to discuss what's actually at the heart of our country's most dire problems is Jason Rantz. He's author of the new book just out today. It's called What's Killing America? Inside the Radical Left's Tragic Destruction of Our Cities. And he is also the host of the Jason Rantz Show. Jason, welcome to the show. I did not realize that you do all of this great work, write this book, talk about these issues, and you're based in Seattle? My God, sir. Talk about being in the belly of the beast.
Yeah, no kidding. There are like 17 Republicans there, so it's easier for me, I guess, to sort of create my little niche. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm one of those people who like to live in the areas that I talk about. I want to actually visit the places that I talk about rather than just simply relying on someone else's opinion, because oftentimes it's incredibly skewed. I mean, I live in a city in which people are telling me that everything is fine. Seattle is thriving. There's no problems whatsoever. I'm making it up to go in conservative media. Meanwhile, we've got a homicide number that's about to hit an all-time high. We've never had more fatal overdoses in our history as a city and a county, and the state as a whole is just going down the wrong path. And when I started to do the research for the book, I recognized that in all of these cities and these deeply blue states, they were basically following the exact same pattern. It was like they were reading from the exact same script, where we can point directly to policy, whether we're talking about a law change, a strategy initiative. We can point to that and say, okay, that is directly responsible for this end result. And unfortunately, too few people recognize that. They have a general understanding that something's wrong, right? That they know about the crime crisis and homelessness. They realize that their cost of living is through the roof, but they don't necessarily know the why. And so What's Killing America tells you the why.
And in particular, you spend some time on crime, like a number of aspects to crime. And I'm definitely interested in the homelessness and the drug problems too, very interested. But on the crime, it raised something for me, because I know you take a deep dive into teens and how there's been this movement to sort of decriminalize teens, because that's turned into a thing that's supposed to be racist or inhumane, that we need to understand, teens shouldn't be held accountable for their bad behavior and what that's led to.
Absolutely. We have a juvenile crime surge. It started a couple of years ago. I think most of us can recognize why. When you go ahead and tell criminals, whether they're teens or not, that you can get away with your crime, that you don't have to really fear any kind of punishment. If anything, if you do end up getting caught by police departments that are already defunded and understaffed, so that's likely not going to happen. But if it does, well, we'll put you into restorative justice programs where you will get community support. It sounds really great on paper, but when you're doing that for teenagers who are already violent, it's not worth the risk to society. These are the kinds of kids who can get restorative justice programs while they're in juvenile detention or an adult prison. I think ultimately, and the reason why a lot of these sort of ideas ended up passing and getting implemented in cities across the country, where I don't know anyone who has an appetite for putting a 15, 16, 17-year-old in jail, right? I think all of us instinctively want to help wherever it is we can, but we're not putting the 15-year-old who steals a candy bar from a 7-Eleven in jail, right? What we want to do is put the kids who are bringing a gun to those robberies and actually firing it. Those are the ones we want to put in jail, but instead we're treating them both exactly the same. And the left-wing argument in this case goes, I'm glad you pointed out the racism card, because that's what they're claiming, that the laziest argument any progressive can use, and they use this all the time on the radical left, they claim some disproportionality. They look at the data and say, black teens are disproportionately impacted by fill in the blank. That's all that they claim to get to a point where they say that it's racist. But disproportionality doesn't tell you the why, it just tells you the what. So for them to just jump to that conclusion, it's just incredibly lazy. But that's the argument that they make, and they're able to guilt mostly white voters in cities like Seattle, Portland, LA, San Francisco, really all across the country, into just accepting that. And we are worse off for it. We are now in a position where our lives are at risk. Sorry. I know a lot of people don't want to acknowledge that. They think it's some kind of hyperbole. But when you look at the crime crisis, all kinds of crime, and again, particularly amongst youth, I think it's pretty clear that things are not where they should be.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, people like Heather McDonald and many others have done great, Jason Riley, great work on this. The vast majority of violent crimes are committed by Black men. That's the truth. That's why that's why the incarceration rate is disproportionate to the percentage of the population that Black men make up. We can get to the root causes of that all day long, but the left doesn't want to do it. They don't want to talk about anything having to do with culture. It's a no-go. But on the subject of teens, Black or white, committing crime, there has been this weird movement to really just treat it like it's a nothing, no matter how violent. And like you say, I'm a reformed shoplifter. I've told a story in the past about when I was 12 on Halloween. I stole earrings and a necklace, and my mom and my friend's mom caught us and made us go down and confess our crime to the Kmart manager, and it was very scary, and I never stole again. That's not what we're talking about. No one's talking about that. They're talking about violent crimes that these kids, like only a depraved heart would do, like we saw with the two kids, sorry to use that term, they're not, the two young men who ran down that former police officer just last week. They just mowed him down like he was absolutely nothing and killed this man who had recently retired, who are going to be treated as adults in the system. But I wanted to mention this because we haven't gotten to this story. It happened a couple weeks ago via the New York Post. Minnesota Democratic official who once vowed to dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department, who actually said right after George Floyd that we need to that the police department has systematically failed the Black community, has failed all of us. If you're still disagreeing with this basic fact, I'm not sure what to say to you, pushing for defunding. She applauded the Minneapolis School Board's decision to terminate its contract with the police, saying the police should have no place in our children's school. Well, guess what happened? The reason we're showing you her bloody and bruised face here is because she was attacked. And guess by whom? A couple of youths, according to her. Her name is Shivanthi Sathanandan. Forgive me if that's not the pronunciation. But she's a Democratic lawmaker who says, in connection with this post, I have a broken leg, deep lacerations on my head, bruising, cuts all over my body, and I have rage. The beating occurred in front of her 4-year-old daughter and 7-year-old son around 7:45 p.m. Tuesday. These men knew what they were doing, she wrote. I have no doubt they've done it before, yet they are still on our streets, killing mothers, giving babies psychological trauma that a lifetime of therapy cannot ease, with no hesitation and no remorse. Then she says, we need to get illegal guns off our streets. We need to catch these young people who are running wild, creating chaos across our city, and hold them in custody and prosecute them. Okay, why are they out in the first place, Representative? Oh, wait, it's because of you and people like you.
Precisely. And what drives me mad, and it's a sad reality, but for a lot of folks, they have to personally experience something for them to finally see things the way that a lot of us on the right see things. And that's a shame when we're talking about crime. I don't want to see innocent victims ever. But unless people are individually impacted or they know someone who's impacted, someone, whether it's something dramatic like this or having a stolen car or, simply taking your kids to the park to find a bunch of homeless people shooting up or smoking fentanyl, that's the point where they start to turn things around. And I think part of it is, and I know this just from my experience living in Seattle, I am surrounded by people who think nothing like me. And I imagine that if I was surrounded by people who only think like me, I would have blinders on to the reality. And when you are so knee deep in your ideology, you tend to just dismiss folks on the other side. And it's really easy to just miss everything. And then all of a sudden it happens to you and you're wondering why isn't anything being done? And you know what? I like to yell at them and shame them and say, maybe you should have woken up a while ago because we've been talking about this for a while. But I'll take them stepping a little bit closer to my side. They're never going to be on the right, but they could step a little bit towards the middle. And when we're dealing with these kinds of policies, whether it's in Minnesota or California, New York, or Oregon and Washington, we just need to moderate just a little bit, and we can start walking back a lot of these policies. But if they're unwilling to accept a reality on the ground, when it comes to crime, drugs, or whatever, they're just not going to see any kind of relief. And ultimately, it's going to catch up to them. And we're all going to become victimized by this if we don't do anything.
Well, it's slowly happening. It's happening with these sanctuary cities and the influx of illegal migrants, and they're feeling the consequences of their own decisions. And crime we talked about. And even there was a story a couple days ago of Chicago now, which is immersed in crime in a way it hasn't been in years, now pushing maybe we should have city-owned, city-run grocery stores because so many are pulling up stops because they're crime-ridden. They can't run a business anymore there. So they're like, maybe the city should just take over. This is, we get news just today that CVS Pharmacy is announcing the closure of some 900 stores. It's going to happen, I think, 300 one year, 300 the next. Because of in part, one of the main two reasons was the theft that's happening. Remember, after George Floyd, you were no longer allowed to call the police on young Black thieves in your CVS because that was racist, because you're basically giving them a death sentence in the eyes of these progressives. Meanwhile, they totally ignore the fact that the vast majority of the victims of these crimes are Black people too, in these sort of cities, CVSs, and so on.
Yeah, there's been a shift in thinking, just the culture and how we treat folks who are the criminals. The radical left believe criminals are the actual victims. And when you think of it through that lens that they view the world, and I give them, this is the only kudos I give to the radical left. They are open about their positions. They did not hide during the post-George Floyd BLM riots and rallies. They said we want to dismantle systems of oppression. They said that out loud, and they believe that all of our institutions are systems of oppression. So in order to build them into this sort of utopian society that they would love us to have in this country, they have to break it down. And so they started with criminal justice. They've been doing it for a while. They just haven't had as much success. And then bam, all of a sudden, because of George Floyd, because everyone just sort of gave in to the demands of a small group of recalcitrant activists, well, they started to see a whole lot of results, and they institutionally changed our criminal justice system all across the country. And so when you tell bad guys, hey, we're not going to charge you if you steal under X amount of dollars worth of product, yeah, they're going to take advantage of that. In Washington State, they passed a bill that prevented officers from vehicular pursuits. And now what that has meant is you steal a car, they can't chase you. You use that car to drive through a storefront, usually a pot shop or a drugstore. They jump in, steal what they can, and then they just drive away in another stolen vehicle. They don't even have to speed away because the cop is not allowed to chase them. And so while that is happening, we've seen a surge of that across the country, but particularly in Washington State. You've got now departments that don't have enough police officers to do the actual investigating, to then track down that criminal who just broke into that pot shop or wherever. And when they're juveniles, which we've seen a lot of, they start to think to themselves, because they don't have responsible adults in their lives, particularly fathers when we're talking about young boys, they say, hey, I wonder what else I can get away with. And they take one step further and then another step and another step. And then you see what we did in Las Vegas, where they seem to think, oh, well, we'll get out of jail after 30 days.
Those are the two kids. Again, I shouldn't use the term kids. They're I think, 17 and 16 who ran down Andreas Probst. Just for we did this on Kelly's Court with Garagos and Marsha Clark last week. But here is the disturbing video. We don't show the moment of impact, but here's the callousness of the crime that we're discussing right now. My God, and they killed him. Hit his ass. So fun. They're giggling. And to your point, Jason, the names, I will say the names of the perpetrators are Jesus Ayala and looking for the other one here, I have it, and Zamir Keys. And they said, Ayala, when arrested by the cops, he was the driver, said, and I quote, "You think this juvenile expletive is going to do some expletive? I'll be out in 30 days. I'll bet you." And then said, "It's just a blanking hit and run, slap on the wrist." Little did he know that they actually would throw the book at him. He and his partner in crime are going to be tried as adults. They cannot face the death penalty because in 2006, the Supreme Court said it's not available for people who commit their crimes while juveniles. But he wasn't wrong, Jason, that in most of these cases, they do get slaps on the wrist and turned right back out onto the streets.
Yeah. Where did he learn that, right? I mean, he's picking up the lingo because he recognizes that it's happening all over the place. In What's Killing America, I cover some of these very specific stories where you have hit and runs, literal hit and runs, and there's a slap on the wrist. They end up getting released. And by the way, in one of those cases, the person responsible for a hit and run ends up getting murdered himself several months after he was released from his, juvenile summer camp punishment. And these are kids who ultimately I do think we can save some of them, maybe not all of them. I think in the case of Las Vegas, they sound like sociopaths, but there are cases where we can actually help them. And we're not going to help them if we're never going to show them any kind of legal consequence. We are failing not just the victims, but we're also failing society by just releasing these kids back into the world to just recommit another crime.
And wait, you raised this in the book. I wanted to get to this with you. That horrific video of the 15-year-old Christopher, is it Baca, who mowed down this mother and her 8-month-old baby in a stroller. We watched this video. The audience should know, miraculously, they were fine. It's a true miracle that the mother and the baby only had superficial wounds. But this 15-year-old mowed them down. This is such a good example. Can you explain what happened to this kid and this 15-year-old and what you think should have happened to him? Like how should he have been handled?
He was quite literally put in a form of summer camp. He was there not even for the full term. He was there for ultimately just a few weeks, and it was supposed to get him on the right path. This is restorative justice at work. And the whole concept of restorative justice sounds great on paper. That we're going to bring together community members, we're going to provide therapy, we're going to talk through some of the issues, get the victims sometimes involved, and really provide this holistic approach. And I think that instinctively people are eager to do something like that rather than throw someone in jail. But that's not actually how any of these programs work, because number one, there's almost never any accountability. There's almost never any oversight. We have programs all across this country where the people don't even show up. So in this case, he goes to summer camp for a few weeks and then he's released. And in the meantime, this poor victim, the mother, moves out of LA County. This was a case of George I wanted to say Soros for a moment, but we're talking about Gascon, who is a very, very, very radical DA who, again, said, I'm looking to dismantle all of these systems. And she, like so many others, said, I don't feel safe anymore. I'm going to leave. She leaves. And then we find out just a few months later, the suspect in this, the criminal in this, ends up getting shot to death. And if you're going to tell me that restorative justice is the place for someone like this, well, you better have some results. You better show us the data. And frankly, the data doesn't exist. The data works when we're talking about someone who, like I said, is stealing a candy bar. That's where these kinds of programs work, because those are the ones who aren't too far gone. But the ones who have already acted out violently, this is what the radical left wants us to believe, that it is worth the risk to society to put them in a restorative justice program rather than jail and hope that it's going to work and they will not commit another crime. I'm sorry, I don't accept that. I don't accept that. I'm willing to take a risk as a member of society who doesn't want to get hurt on the kid who steals the Butterfinger. I'm not willing to take that risk on someone who mows down a mother and her child. It is too much for me. And I think most people are on that page, but they don't realize it's going on.
So let's talk about the drug problem a bit, because you write about Oregon, not far from where you're living, and how they tried drug decriminalization. This is all the rage in the progressive communities. Like, let's just make it all legal. Heroin, whatever you want, it's fine. And we're actually going to help you. We're going to help you do it safer. That's what they want, like a more safe alternative for people who are addicted to drugs. So how did that work out?
Oh, it didn't. And they're still doing it, of course. So this is one of those terms, again, that I think sounds great on paper, and it's called harm reduction. Now, if I went outside and I asked just 10 random people if they ever heard of the term, could define the term, 10 out of 10 would tell me no. They would have no idea. And yet this is the policy that is in place, not just in Oregon, but all across the country. It's been adopted by the Biden administration as well. It's a form of drug treatment, they claim, in which they make it safer to consume an illicit substance. And their argument is, if we can keep the addict alive long enough to get treatment, he or she will finally do so. So let's give them a clean needle so they're not spreading bloodborne disease. We'll give them a crack pipe or a booty bumping kit, which I get to in the book. I love saying that in front of 3 million Americans on Tucker.
It is dark. I did not know about this thing. It is dark. It's exactly what it sounds like, and it's internal. Let's just say that.
Don't Google any photos or videos of that. But they're saying, let's give away these tools and then eventually we'll be able to treat these people. On paper, that sounds great. In reality, they don't do any treatment. They don't put money into treatment or detox at all. There's never any pressure to push people into treatment or detox because they believe that any kind of judgment is stigmatizing against the user. And so they don't want to do anything. As a result of that, we have seen record high numbers of dead addicts all across the country. We've seen just today, there was a report came out that I believe is 31 states saw an increase in fentanyl overdoses year over year. And keep in mind, the last 2 and 3 years, we've seen record highs. Oregon is going in the complete wrong direction. This was passed by voters, Measure 110. I get through some of the data in the book, but essentially, you're given the opportunity as someone who ends up getting ticketed for an illicit substance abuse. You can avoid paying the ticket so long as you call this number on the back of it to get some sort of treatment. Well, guess what? They didn't show up to court and they didn't call up the number. And it's been a total failure. Washington State did virtually the same thing. It went about it a little bit different way. They finally just walked it back because in Seattle and King County, we've seen an historic rise of overdoses. A lot of it is driven by fentanyl. Some of it also is meth. To give you a sense of how bad it is in the Pacific Northwest, there was a study by the University of Washington that came out about 3 or so weeks ago, and they tested the surfaces and the air of our metro systems, our transit. 100% of the air had meth in it.
Oh my God.
Had meth smoke detected. 98% on surfaces. It was a little bit less on fentanyl. I think that's a little bit having to do with the way that fentanyl is consumed. But 100%, I mean, just think about that for a second. 100%. And by the way, they had the gall to tell us, oh, it's totally safe to continue to take transit. Don't worry, stop complaining.
Oh my God.
But the fact of the matter is, that obviously indicates a problem with drug abuse. And you can track the data so clearly because back in 2018, our prosecutor in King County, which is where Seattle is located at the time, said, we're no longer going to charge for personal possession. We're no longer going to consider that a criminal justice issue. Well, guess what happened? Number one, the drug dealers stopped carrying as much product on them. They were carrying personal possession amounts. So in case they were stopped by a cop, they can get out of it. Number two, the cops no longer had any leverage over an addict to turn on the drug dealer because before they could say, look, I'm going to throw you in jail. You're going to detox over the weekend in jail unless you give me information on your drug dealer. Well, they no longer had to do that. And all of a sudden, you've got open air drug use all over the place. And people are dying in record numbers. Every single year since 2018, we've seen a historic high overdose rate. Every single year.
Oh, yeah. You write about this in the book. In Oregon, after this, fatal overdoses, you just alluded to it, surged 76% from 2011 to 21, with fentanyl driving the numbers. Just between 2020 and 2021, fentanyl-related fatal overdoses rose 83%. I mean, that is shocking. What an F, a total failure. Just to remind our audience, my guest is Jason Rantz, R-A-N-T-Z, and the book is What's Killing America? Inside the Radical Left's Tragic Destruction of Our Cities. And you lay it all out. The other thing you get into, we touched on it, but like the homelessness problem, how they think the solution is housing. Let's just get housing and everything will be better.
Yeah, it turns out that that's actually not how it works because they were not born homeless. They had a home at one point and then they ended up on the streets. And it's very similar in the way that harm reduction is being used. There's another policy out there, a strategy called Housing First. And again, I can ask anyone what it is. No one would be able to define it. And yet, that is why we have a crisis of homelessness in this country. Housing First says we're going to put people without any conditions into subsidized housing. And usually they're waiting for either now they do homeless hotels, but also just your standard studio apartment. And that's been one of the reasons why we don't see a lot of sweeps in Democrat-run cities. They don't want to sweep these homeless encampments, all these tents, until you have a home for them because apparently it lacks compassion to let people live surrounded by human waste and use needles and trash. And so you would at least on paper say, okay, maybe that does work. And we often hear people say Salt Lake City did this and they got to functional zero homeless population. Well, that's not true. And I did the research. I ended up committing an entire chapter just to Salt Lake and the housing first myth because it was a total failure. They did not look at the right numbers. They, I think, intentionally misled the public as to the impact of their policy. And it's gotten worse, homelessness, ever since. But the biggest issue with housing first is there's never any kind of mandate that the individual get treatment for whatever it is was the underlying cause of their homelessness. So let's say it was drug addiction, which is leading a lot of it. Well, you can just continue to use drugs while in the subsidized housing. That doesn't help them. It doesn't help them at all. And of course, they're not just staying in their home. They're still going out into the community. They're still committing crimes in order to pay for their drug of choice. But the only people who end up benefiting are the ones who run these programs, the homeless industrial complex. And it sounds kind of like conspiratorial when I put things in that phrasing, but these are people who get paid to care for the homeless who never go on their own, who never get get onto their own path. And so they're incentivized, whether or not they're doing this intentionally. I don't generally think that, but it's got to be a subconscious bias there. The longer they're in subsidized housing, the longer these people are employed, the more money they get. And despite showing very few success stories, they keep getting larger budgets. Because behind the scenes, they're cozying up to politicians at the local or state level, and they're just getting more funds funneled into their programs. And they say that now just getting someone indoors is success, but I don't think the average person would argue that that's successful. And so when folks are complaining about the homelessness crisis, understand a lot of this is being done in your name, and you probably at one point just heard about it in passing, this housing first model, and you didn't push back because you thought it made sense. And that's why I wrote this book on all these topics. Like, here's how you decode the radical left and what they're doing to our cities.
Well, yes. I mean, the aptly named What's Killing America by Jason Rantz lays it out. And the homelessness, you have a great example of what they're doing in Austin, which actually is working. It's a different approach, and people should read the book to find out the difference. It makes a lot of sense. Austin seems like a very sensible city. It's blue, but it's in a red state, and its blueness is tempered, I think, by the general approach of Texans. But I want to jump back to the drug thing, because the thing you said about what's happening on the Metro, where the 100% of the tests came back positive for meth, is very scary for anybody, but especially somebody who goes on there with children. And it reminds me of what happened in New York, in the Bronx last week. It was on the cover of the Post for a couple of days, where a baby, a 1-year-old baby boy, died. He was put in this daycare center. I think 3 other babies were almost killed too. They were taken to the hospital, and so far I believe all 3 have survived. They were given Narcan to try to bring them back, but it was because of fentanyl. And it appears, according to the feds at least, the woman running the daycare center, which was in an apartment, and somebody who lived in an adjoining apartment were running a fentanyl lab. She denies it. She's like, I had no idea, but she waited to call the cops, according to the feds. She called somebody else who came over before the 911 people came. And this baby died because just inhaling the fentanyl, which had been in the room. It wasn't like he actually took it or any of these babies took it. Just inhaling it could be lethal or almost lethal.
Well, if you talk to some folks in the harm reduction camp, that's not true. In fact, even the UW study, again, they're telling us that it's totally safe. Now, there's a little bit of a difference, obviously, between secondhand fentanyl smoke and fentanyl, the substance itself, but I just wholly reject the idea that it's perfectly safe. This from the same group of folks who tell us secondhand smoke kills, and yet secondhand fentanyl or any kind of exposure to fentanyl, because I've been on a bus where people have been openly smoking. They pull out their little tin foil. They're very clearly smoking either fentanyl or meth, and I've smelled it. I should not know what fentanyl smells like.
No.
And yet I know precisely what it smells like. I've never actually used fentanyl, but I know what it smells like when it's being smoked.
I didn't know you could smoke fentanyl.
You can smoke almost anything at this point. Fentanyl gets smoked as well. It can be smoked. Also meth.
But I mean, that's a good thing to know. So you're like, you're a mother or father on a train or a bus, and you smell something, you don't know what it is. Get the hell off. Get your kid away. So what? You have to wait for the next bus. Get out of there.
Yeah, the problem is, though, Megyn, is that next bus might also have someone on there who is smoking or using in some way. That's the reality of certain routes in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, same thing in Portland when you go onto their sort of light rail streetcar system. You're running into the exact same issues. And just to be told that any of our concerns are meritless is just insulting. And if we don't push back, it's just going to get worse. But the reason why they're doing this is, again, they don't want to stigmatize drug use. But to your point, we're having kids die in this country. These are avoidable deaths. There are some accidents and deaths and crimes that are not avoidable. They just happen. But this is very clearly avoidable because they've created a culture of lawlessness as it relates specifically to drug use. And as a result, well, guess what? Now it's getting in front of kids and kids are becoming victimized. And if that doesn't push people into action, I don't know what will.
You write a lot about the fentanyl crisis, and it is very scary about how they are lacing these Mexican drug cartels. They're lacing other pills with fentanyl, with a synthetic opioid, which is killing people. I mean, Eric Bowling, my friend, has got a whole charity called One Pill Can Kill to remind people about the death of his son, Eric Chase. And that's what happened. One pill did kill him. When you comes from the wrong person and you think it's a nothing, and maybe you think it's just like a sedative or something that's going to take the edge off. And kids need to know there's no such thing as a safe one pill that you get from a dealer or you get from somebody other than a doctor. It's very scary. I appreciate the book because what's happening here needs attention. We're so obsessed with Ukraine. We can do both. We can do both. We're not doing both. America is being killed bit by a lot of these problems that Jason outlines. You can check it out in his book, What's Killing America. Jason Rantz, please come back.
I will. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Great to see you. And I want to tell you all that we have some great guests coming up tomorrow. The Fifth Column guys. Very much looking forward to that in advance of the next Republican debate. And the GOP debate will bring on our all-star analysis the next day. Glenn Greenwald, Eliana Johnson, Michael Dunklin from Ruthless, and then Scott Adams joins us for the first time on Friday. See you tomorrow.